One of the most objectionable things that we do to farmed animals has to be chick culling. Each year, the egg industry kills billions of newly born chicks who are male because they can't lay eggs. But now, a new technology is about to change the game in the egg industry and prevent this grisly fate for billions of day-old chicks. If you had to invent the perfectly evil action, what would you come up with? Let's think about some features that such an action might have. Well, you'd probably want extreme pain and suffering, completely innocent victims, perpetration on a mass scale, and no good justification. Essentially, we're talking about something approximating a vast machine for torturing billions of innocent beings for no good reason. But what if the victims looked like this? That's right, these guys are the victims of the real-life machine that I'm talking about. Egg-laying hens are bred differently from so-called broiler chickens, so these chicks are not optimized to be grown for meat. We take them at a day old, these tiny little fluffy defenseless guys, we put them either in a gas chamber or in a shredder. Farmed animals are subjected to all kinds of unnecessary suffering, from painful mutilations to entrapment in small cages. Around the world, over 90% of farmed animals are reared on industrial factory farms, where we know that animal welfare is not always a priority. But when future societies look back at how our society treated farmed animals, I think that chick culling is going to be one of our most embarrassing memories. Even today, most people find this to be unacceptable. Various different surveys put the number of people saying chick culling is unacceptable at upwards of 80%. The problem is that most people have no idea it's going on. One survey found that just 11% of people correctly answered what happens to male chicks in the egg industry. Well, there's good news. We are on the precipice of ending this practice once and for all, thanks to a new technology called Ovo Sexing. Ovo Sexing is a technology which allows egg producers to identify which eggs are going to hatch into male chicks and terminate them before they hatch. Importantly, this can be done before the embryo develops into a chick with the capacity to feel pain. Scientific evidence suggests that the capacity to feel pain develops at around day 13 out of 21 of the incubation process, so any termination that happens before that time is happening to an embryo with no capacity to feel it. There's currently 3 main ways to determine the sex of a chick in ovo. The first is an imaging technique, which looks through the egg to determine the chick's sex based on colour cues or by looking at their bits. Secondly, it can be done based on an analysis of liquid taken through a tiny hole made in the egg shell. And third, male chicks can be genetically edited to carry genetic markers, which makes them very easy to identify. Since only the males carry this marker, the female hens and also the eggs which people eat are still non-GM. So it looks like we have the technology to actually stop male chicks from being born and immediately fed into shredders. But is this something that the industry is really going to adopt? All of this sounds expensive, and the industry doesn't have a great track record of spending money to improve animal welfare. Well, there's more good news there. The price premium on eggs produced using Ovo Sexing, so-called no-kill eggs, is less than 1 cent per egg. Yep, you heard that right. This cutting-edge technology, which can take a picture through an eggshell of an embryo's gonads, costs less than 1 cent per egg. How is this not too good to be true? Well, there's 2 main reasons. First, the average laying hen lays about 400 eggs over the course of her lifetime. So any increase in the cost of producing the laying hens is effectively diluted over 400 eggs. Second, this technology actually makes things more efficient for hatcheries. These facilities have limited space in their incubators, and they don't want to spend 3 weeks worth of time and energy and space on an egg that turns out to be worthless. This could also allow hatcheries to send to farms known female eggs rather than hatched female chicks, meaning that there would be no need to transport newly born chicks. These efficiencies put Ovo Sexing in kind of a weird category of interventions which definitely improve farmed animal welfare, but also aren't actively opposed by the animal industry. In fact, there's been pretty rapid adoption of the technology already. In Europe, 20% of egg-laying hens were sexed in ovo as of April 2024. By April 2025, that number had gone up to 28%. Ovo Sexing only just arrived in the US in late 2024, but there are already several large stakeholders, including Unilever and Walmart, who have expressed interest in adopting the technology. The egg industry itself is on board too. United Egg Producers have already rolled out Ovo egg certification across the US, and there's interest from major egg producers in Brazil, Mexico, and Chile. There's been significant investment in this technology from governments including Canada, Australia, and Japan, and the government of India has committed to supporting the technology once it becomes available. Consumers are up for it as well. There are surveys showing that around 80% of consumers are interested in buying no-kill eggs in the US, and similar proportions reported in Germany and Brazil. Perhaps this level of consensus shouldn't be too surprising. Again, we are talking here about the end to the mass pointless torture of innocent chicks machine. And if you're vegan, like me, you have to think this is a good thing. Right, guys? I know. These so-called no-kill eggs are not vegan. They are still coming from animals, and there's no guarantee that those animals are treated well. In fact, since Ovo Sexing is cheaper to implement than cage-free systems, it's possible that in the future you'll be able to get no-kill eggs, which nevertheless come from battery cages. That said, implementing Ovo Sexing is just obviously better than the alternative. Again, chick culling might be one of the worst things that I can possibly imagine. Conveyor belts feeding day-old chicks directly into a shredder. There really is not enough hyperbole to describe how horrible this is. At this point, it bears looking again at that consumer data. Most people said that they're uncomfortable with chick culling, sure. But in the UK, 11% said that they are comfortable with it. In the US, that comfortable number rises to 21%. They think about these innocent chicks being fed directly into a shredder, and they think, yeah, I reckon that's alright. There is something wild going on here. We have about 1 in 9 Brits and about 1 in 5 Americans who are either complete psychopaths or who are in the throes of cognitive dissonance. But here's where it gets interesting. These changes are imminent. Chick culling is on the way out. Sometime in the next couple of decades, the last chick macerating machine will be turned off for good. And we're going to see how that survey data changes when that starts to happen. When we're no longer talking about a practice that's commonplace and that people are implicated in by their own egg consumption, how many of them are going to say, yes, I think chick maceration is okay? I would like to think not that many. One vegan perspective that I definitely disagree with on this topic is that it's somehow bad just to be able to invent our way out of animal suffering. Some vegans will take a view that it's no good just to invent our way out of animal suffering if it avoids people actually having to think about and care about animals. Some might even worry that this kind of technology will lock in a form of speciesism, since it's still exploitation of animals. I think this is wrong-headed for 2 reasons. First, as I just explained, I think this technology actually will change our attitudes towards animals, but that they'll become better, not worse. Once chick maceration is no longer implicated in one's own egg consumption, very few people are going to find it worthwhile defending. But second, it's not actually the thinking about animals that we care about, it's the reduction in animal suffering. We might want people to think about animal suffering instrumentally, so that they then take actions which actually do reduce animal suffering, but even then it's quite difficult to do. If we can reduce the suffering and skip over the part where people have to think about it, it might be easier to achieve, and we can still actually reduce the animal suffering, which is what actually matters here. In my view, us vegans should be some of the loudest to celebrate the huge reduction in animal suffering that is about to occur here. It doesn't mean that vegans can eat no-kill eggs, or that there aren't other problems with the egg industry. What it does mean is that technology can give us a viable path forward to reduce animal suffering on a mass scale. Right now, if you eat eggs, you are paying for day-old male chicks to be fed directly into shredders. Technology is actually going to change that pretty quickly, and within a couple of decades, that won't be the case anymore. If you're part of the 85% who finds it unacceptable to feed day-old male chicks directly into shredders, you might also be part of the 94% who finds it unacceptable to keep chickens in cages the size of an A4 piece of paper. And if you are uncomfortable with both of those things, you might like to think about whether you really need to be using animals for food at all. Instead of just waiting for this particular suffering machine to be turned off, why don't you take your last chance to be a moral leader on this issue and stop paying to put chicks into shredders today? And if you've already stopped paying to put male chicks into shredders, why don't you join me in trying to turn off the rest of the chick shredding machines as efficiently as possible? No-kill eggs are not animal-free, and they're not vegan, but they are going to end the practice of macerating day-old male chicks. And the reduction in needless suffering of innocent animals is going to be enormous, and enormously good. What do you think? I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. This is Chris Bryant, PhD. Cheers.